Millionaire disguises himself as a taxi driver to spy on his fiancée, and what he discovers makes him cry. Nathan Morgan, heir to the fortune of the Morgan family, owners of the largest beverage and energy drink distributor in the country, had always felt a void in his heart. Despite growing up surrounded by luxury and wealth, something was missing in his life. On his 18th birthday, during the lavish celebration organized by his parents at the family mansion, Nathan made a decision that would change the course of his life forever. "Father, mother," he announced in front of the guests, "I've decided to study business administration in New York." A deathly silence fell over the crowd. Frank Morgan, the family patriarch, felt control over his son slipping through his fingers. With a forced smile, he replied, "Son, don't you think it would be better if you stayed here? The company needs you." But Nathan was determined. "I need to do this for myself, Father. I promise I'll come back prepared to take on my responsibilities." And so, against the wishes of his family and the social elite surrounding him, Nathan set off for New York, leaving behind a life of comfort and privilege. At Columbia University, Nathan discovered a completely new world, far from the luxuries he was accustomed to. He shared a dorm room with other students, ate in the university cafeteria, and for the first time in his life had to do his own laundry. It was during his second year when he met Chloe Sanders. She worked as a receptionist at the company where Nathan was doing his internship. Chloe was different from all the girls Nathan had known before. She wasn't impressed by his last name or his money. In fact, she didn't even know who he really was. "Excuse me, miss," Nathan said, nervously on the first day he saw her. "I'm the new intern. Could you tell me where Mr. Johnson's office is?" Chloe looked up from her computer and gave him a warm smile. "Of course. Go up to the 3rd floor, second door on the right." Their eyes met for a moment, and Nathan felt something inside him change forever. As the days went by, Nathan found any excuse to pass by the reception desk and talk to Chloe. Gradually, a friendship blossomed between them, and Nathan found himself sharing things he had never told anyone before. "You know, Chloe," he said one day as they were having lunch together, "I've never felt so normal, so much like myself." Chloe looked at him curiously. "What do you mean, Nate?" Nathan hesitated for a moment before answering. "Well, where I come from, things are different. Here, with you, I feel like I can be who I really am, without expectations, without pressure." Chloe gently took his hand. "Nate, I don't know much about your past, but I like the Nathan I know now." Those words resonated in Nathan's heart. For the first time in his life, he felt truly appreciated for who he was, not for what he had or for his last name. As his relationship with Chloe deepened, Nathan realized that the void he had always felt was beginning to fill. The love that was blossoming between them was pure, sincere, free from the complications and expectations of the world he belonged to. However, as the end of his studies approached, a shadow loomed over their happiness. Nathan knew he would have to return to his home state, to the family business, to the responsibilities that awaited him. How would Chloe fit into that world? Would she be willing to follow him? And his family, would they accept an ordinary girl as the partner of the Morgan heir? As he contemplated the uncertain future, Nathan made a decision. No matter what happened, he would fight for this love Chloe had shown him. A new world had taught him the value of hard work and simplicity. He wasn't willing to lose that. With determination in his eyes, Nathan prepared to face what was to come. The return home, his family's expectations, the challenges they would surely face. But with Chloe by his side, he felt he could conquer the world. What Nathan didn't know was that fate had many more tests in store for their love tests that would challenge their trust, their loyalty, and their determination. The journey that had begun as a simple desire for independence would become an odyssey that would change not only his life but that of everyone around him. The international airport buzzed with activity when Nathan Morgan set foot on home soil after 4 years of absence. Despite having asked for discretion, a crowd of journalists and photographers was waiting, eager to capture the return of the heir to the Morgan empire. Nathan, how does it feel to be back?" shouted the reporters as camera flashes momentarily blinded him. With a polite but distant smile, Nathan replied, "I'm happy to be back and eager to take on my responsibilities in the family business." Among the crowd, Nathan distinguished his parents, Frank Morgan, with his usual imposing bearing, and Evelyn, his mother, elegant as always, were waiting for him with a mixture of pride and expectation on their faces. "My son," said Frank, giving him a formal hug. "Welcome home." Evelyn, more emotional, enveloped him in a warm embrace. "We've missed you so much, darling." As they headed towards the waiting limousine, Nathan couldn't help but think of Chloe. He had left her in New York with the promise that they would soon be together again. "I just need to settle in and prepare the ground," he had told her. Now, facing the reality of his world, he wondered how he would manage to keep that promise. The following days were a whirlwind of meetings, presentations, and social events. Nathan immersed himself in work, impressing the board of directors with his fresh ideas and innovative vision for the company. "I propose an expansion into the organic and sustainable beverage market," he presented at his first important meeting. "It's a growing niche and would position us as leaders in environmental responsibility." The proposal was received with enthusiasm, especially by the younger members of the board. However, some of the older executives, including Richard Vance, his father's closest partner, showed some skepticism. "It's an interesting idea, Nathan," said Richard with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, "but perhaps you should focus first on learning how the company works before proposing such drastic changes." Nathan felt a twinge of irritation, but maintained his composure. "I appreciate your concern, Richard, but I assure you that I have thoroughly studied the market and the company's operations. This move would give us a significant competitive advantage." Frank, who had observed the exchange in silence, finally intervened. "I think we should seriously consider Nathan's proposal. After all, we need young blood and new ideas to stay at the forefront." His father's words filled Nathan with pride and determination. He was determined to prove his worth and gain everyone's respect in the company. However, as he immersed himself in his new responsibilities, Nathan felt that something was missing. Nightly calls with Chloe became his anchor, his connection to a simpler and more authentic reality. "I miss you so much, Nate," Chloe told him one night, her voice tinged with longing. "When will I be able to see you?" Nathan closed his eyes, imagining her face. "Soon, my love. I'm preparing everything for you to come. I just need a little more time." But time passed, and the pressure of the Morgan world began to weigh on Nathan. The expectations of his family, corporate intrigues, and constant appearances at social events kept him busy day and night. It was at one of these events where Nathan came face to face with Sophia Anderson, the daughter of one of the company's most important partners. Beautiful, sophisticated, and from a good family, Sophia represented everything that was expected of the Morgan heirs partner. "Nathan, it's nice to see you," said Sophia, approaching with a glass of champagne in hand. "You've changed a lot in these years. New York suited you well." Nathan smiled politely. "Thank you, Sophia. You look very good too." As they conversed, Nathan couldn't help but notice the approving glances thrown at them by the guests, especially his parents, Evelyn. His mother approached with a radiant smile. "What a lovely couple you two make," she commented, not hiding her enthusiasm. "Sophia, dear, you should come to dinner at our house one of these days." Nathan felt a knot in his stomach. He knew he had to tell them about Chloe, but with each passing day, the task seemed more difficult. How would he explain to them that he was in love with a simple American receptionist? That night, as he looked out the window of his luxurious apartment, Nathan made a decision. No matter what his parents or society said, he would bring Chloe and face the consequences. She was his anchor, his connection to what really mattered in life. With renewed determination, Nathan began to plan how to integrate Chloe into his world. What he didn't know was that this would be just the beginning of a series of challenges that would test their love, their loyalty, and everything he believed in. Nathan's heart was pounding as he waited at the airport. After weeks of preparation and anticipation, the day had finally arrived. Chloe was coming to visit him. He had decided to keep her arrival a secret, wanting to protect her from the media circus that would surely erupt when her existence became known. When Chloe appeared among the crowd of passengers, Nathan felt the world stop. There she was, with her warm smile and eyes full of love, so out of place in the luxurious airport, like a wildflower in a garden of cultivated roses. "Nate!" exclaimed Chloe, running towards him and throwing herself into his arms. Nathan hugged her tightly, inhaling her familiar scent. "I missed you so much, my love," he whispered in her ear. The drive to Nathan's apartment was a whirlwind of emotions and updates. Chloe looked in amazement out the window of the luxury car, marveling at the skyscrapers and elegant avenues. "It's like another world," she commented, her eyes bright with excitement. Nathan smiled, but couldn't help feeling a twinge of concern. How would Chloe adapt to this world so different from hers? The first few days were like a dream. Nathan took time off work to show Chloe the city, taking her to exclusive restaurants and designer stores. But he soon noticed that Chloe felt uncomfortable in these luxurious places. "Nate, couldn't we just order a pizza and stay home?" she asked one night, after another dinner at a five-star restaurant. Nathan realized he was making a mistake. He was trying to impress Chloe with things that didn't matter to her. "Of course, my love, I'm sorry I got carried away," he replied, feeling guilty. As the days went by, Nathan began to feel the pressure of introducing Chloe to his family and the Morgan world. He knew he couldn't keep her hidden forever, but he feared the reaction it would provoke. Finally, he decided to organize a dinner at his apartment to introduce Chloe to his parents. On the night of the dinner, Chloe was nervous, constantly adjusting the dress Nathan had bought her. "Relax, love," Nathan told her, kissing her softly. "You'll be perfect." When Frank and Evelyn Morgan arrived, Nathan could see the surprise and confusion on their faces when they saw Chloe. "Mother, father," said Nathan, taking Chloe's hand, "I'd like you to meet Chloe Sanders, my girlfriend." The silence that followed was deafening. Evelyn was the first to react, composing a forced smile. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Chloe," she said. Although her tone suggested otherwise, Frank, for his part, looked at Chloe as if she were a puzzle he couldn't solve. "So how did you two meet?" he asked, his voice laden with skepticism. Chloe, nervous but determined, replied, "We met at the company where Nathan was doing his internship. I worked as a receptionist." Evelyn's eyes widened, and Frank coughed uncomfortably. "Receptionist," repeated Evelyn, as if the word was strange in her. Mouth Nathan, feeling the tension in the air, quickly intervened. "Chloe is much more than that, Mother. She's intelligent, compassionate, and has taught me more about life and hard work than any class at Columbia." The dinner proceeded in a tense atmosphere, with forced conversations and uncomfortable silences. Chloe did her best to fit in, but it was evident that Nathan's parents saw her as an intruder in their world. When they finally left, Nathan hugged Chloe, who was trembling slightly. "I'm so sorry, my love. It shouldn't be like this." Chloe looked at him with eyes full of determination. "Don't worry, Nate. We knew it wouldn't be easy, but we're in this together, right?" Nathan nodded, kissing her softly. "Always." The following days were a whirlwind of rumors and gossip in high society. The news that the Morgan heir was dating a simple receptionist spread like wildfire, generating all kinds of speculation. At the office, Nathan could feel the looks and whispers as he passed. Richard Vance, his father's partner, was quick to address the issue. "Nathan's son," he said one day, closing the door to Nathan's office. "I understand that you're young and want to experiment, but you must think about the future of the company. A relationship like this, well, it's not what's expected of the future CEO of Morgan Corp." Nathan felt his blood boil. "My relationship with Chloe has nothing to do with the company, Richard, and I'd appreciate it if you didn't meddle in my personal life." Richard raised his hands in surrender. "I'm just trying to advise you, boy, there's a lot at stake here." Meanwhile, Chloe struggled to adapt to her new reality. Every time she went out with Nathan, she felt the disapproving glances and heard the poorly disguised whispers. "Is that the Morgan heir's girl? They say she's a gold digger." Poor thing. Do you think she knows she's just a passing whim? These words hurt her deeply, but she tried not to show it in front of Nathan. However, the pressure was beginning to take its toll. One night after another, social event where she felt completely out of place, Chloe finally broke down. "Nate, I don't know if I can do this, your world, it's too different from mine. Maybe your parents are right, maybe I don't belong here." Nathan hugged her tightly. "Don't say that, my love, you are my world now. I don't care what others say, I love you and I want to be with you." With tears in her eyes, Chloe looked at him. "I love you too, Nate. But will it be enough?" That night, while Chloe slept, Nathan made a decision. He wouldn't allow anyone to come between them. With determination, he began to plan how to show the world that their love was real and lasting. What Nathan didn't know was that his actions were about to trigger a series of events that would test not only their relationship, but also his loyalty to the company and his family. The path he had chosen was full of obstacles, and he would soon discover that the price of true love could be higher than he imagined. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Nathan and Chloe struggled to keep their relationship afloat amidst the storm of gossip and disapproval that surrounded them. Meanwhile, at Morgan Corp, things were starting to take an unexpected turn. Nathan had been working tirelessly on his project to expand into the organic beverage market. He was sure that this initiative would not only be profitable, but would also improve the company's image. However, every time he presented progress, he encountered inexplicable obstacles. One morning, while reviewing some reports in his office, Nathan noticed some discrepancies in the numbers, figures that didn't add up, projections that seemed manipulated to make his project appear less viable. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered to himself, frowning. Determined to get to the bottom of the matter, Nathan began to investigate discreetly. What he discovered left him stunned. Someone within the company was deliberately sabotaging his project. While dealing with these problems at work, Nathan couldn't help but notice that Chloe seemed increasingly distant. There were moments when he caught her staring into space with a worried expression, and when he asked what was wrong, she would simply smile and say it was nothing. One night, as they were having dinner at Nathan's apartment, Chloe received a call that made her visibly nervous. "Everything okay, love?" Nathan asked, concerned. Chloe nodded quickly. Yes, just a friend with problems. Nothing to worry about." But Nathan couldn't help but notice how Chloe excused herself shortly after to make another call in private. The seed of doubt began to grow in his mind. The next day, at the office, Nathan ran into Sophia Anderson in the elevator. The young woman who had always shown interest in him seemed unusually serious. "Nathan, I know it's none of my business, but are you sure about Chloe?" Sophia asked with apparent concern. Nathan looked at her confused. "What do you mean?" Sophia hesitated for a moment before continuing. "It's just that I've heard rumors that she's been seen with another man in the old part of town. It's probably nothing, but I thought you should know." Sophia's words resonated in Nathan's mind throughout the day. He wanted to trust Chloe, but doubts began to erode his confidence. What if everything had been too good to be true? What if Chloe was really with him for his money and position? That night, when Chloe told him she had to go out for an emergency, Nathan made an impulsive decision. He would follow her to discover the truth for himself. Using his resources, Nathan got a discreet car and a simple disguise. He felt guilty for distrusting Chloe, but the need to know the truth was stronger. He followed Chloe's taxi to a less affluent area of the city. He saw her get out in front of a humble house and ring the doorbell. An older man opened the door and Chloe hugged him affectionately before entering. Nathan's heart sank. Who was that man? Why had Chloe lied to him about where she was going? Consumed by distrust and jealousy, Nathan was about to get out of the car and confront her. But something stopped him. A voice inside told him there was more to this story than he could see. He decided to wait and observe. Hours later, Chloe came out of the house and saying goodbye affectionately to the older man. Nathan followed her back home, his mind full of unanswered questions. The next day, unable to contain his suspicions, Nathan decided to confront Chloe. "Where were you really last night?" he asked bluntly, when Chloe arrived at the apartment. Chloe looked at him surprised. "I told you. I had an emergency with a friend." "A friend?" Nathan replied, his voice laden with sarcasm. "The older man from the house in the old neighborhood?" Chloe's eyes widened. "You followed me?" she asked, her voice mixing disbelief and pain. Nathan ran a hand through, his hair frustrated. "What did you want me to do? You're acting strange, receiving mysterious calls, going out without explanation. What am I supposed to think?" Chloe stared at him, tears forming in her eyes. "You're supposed to trust me, Nathan. I thought you knew me better than this." The silence that followed was deafening. Nathan realized he had crossed a line, but his pride prevented him from backing down. "If there's nothing to hide, why don't you tell me the truth?" he insisted. Chloe took a deep breath as if making a difficult decision. "Fine, you want the truth? The man you saw is my father." The revelation fell on Nathan like a bucket of cold water. "Your father? But why didn't you tell me?" Chloe collapsed onto the sofa, tears now freely running down her cheeks. "Because he asked me to. He's sick, Nate. He has cancer and doesn't want to be a burden. He made me promise not to tell you, that it wouldn't interfere with our relationship. He was afraid your family would see it as another obstacle, another reason to disapprove of me." Nathan felt the world crumbling around him. All this time, Chloe had been dealing with this alone, carrying an enormous weight out of fear of losing him. "Chloe, I'm so sorry," he said, approaching her and taking her hands. "I should have trusted you. I should have, sir." But before he could finish, Nathan's phone rang. It was his father. "Nathan, come to the office immediately. There's been a serious problem with the company's stocks. We're on the verge of a scandal." As Nathan looked at Chloe, devastated by his own distrust, and listened to his father's urgent voice on the phone, he realized he was at a crossroads. The two parts of his life were colliding, and he would have to make decisions that would change his future forever. What Nathan didn't know was that these events were just the beginning of a series of revelations that would shake the foundations of everything. He thought he knew about his family, his company, and the true meaning of love and loyalty. Nathan arrived at the office with a heavy heart, his mind divided between guilt for having distrusted Chloe and concern about the crisis in the company. As he entered the boardroom, he was met with somber and tense faces. Frank Morgan, his father, was standing by the window, his normally imposing figure looking tired and defeated. Richard Vance, the trusted partner, was typing furiously on his laptop, while other executives murmured in low voices. "What's going on?" Nathan asked, closing the door behind him. Frank turned to him, his eyes laden with worry. "Someone has leaked confidential information about our financial practices. The media is having a field day, and our stocks are in free fall." Nathan felt the ground move beneath his feet. How is this possible? Who would do such a thing? Richard looked up from his computer, his gaze fixed on Nathan. "That's what we're trying to figure out. But the fact is that only a handful of people had access to that information." The implication in Richard's words was clear, and Nathan felt a wave of indignation. "If you're insinuating that I had something to do with this, no one is accusing anyone," interrupted Frank, raising a hand to calm tensions. "But we have to consider all possibilities. Nathan, have you noticed anything unusual lately? Anyone who has shown interest in information they shouldn't have?" Nathan was about to deny it when he remembered the discrepancies he had noticed in the reports, the sabotage of his expansion project. Could it all be connected? "Actually," he began, "I've noticed some strange things in the last few months. Figures that don't add up, decisions that seem to go against the company's interests." As Nathan shared his observations, he saw his father's expression change from concern to contained anger. Richard, for his part, seemed increasingly uncomfortable. "Why didn't you say anything before?" Frank asked, his voice mixing frustration and disappointment. Nathan ran a hand through his hair, feeling guilty. "I thought I could handle it. I wanted to prove I was capable of solving problems on my own." Frank sighed deeply. "Nathan, being a leader doesn't mean carrying everything alone. It means knowing when to ask for help and trust your team." His father's words hit Nathan hard. making him think about how he had treated Chloe. He had made the same mistake in his personal and professional life, letting pride and distrust cloud his judgment. "You're right, Father," Nathan admitted. "I should have spoken up earlier, but now, what do we do?" Frank headed to the head of the table, his posture regaining some of its usual authority. "We're going to review everything from the beginning, Nathan. I want you to work with the internal audit team, Richard. I need you to—" But before Frank could finish, the boardroom door burst open. Evelyn Morgan, Nathan's mother, entered with a pale face and a tablet in her hand. "Frank, Nathan, you have to see this," she said, her voice trembling slightly. On the tablet screen, a viral video was playing on loop. It showed Nathan, clearly recognizable despite his disguise following Chloe the night before. The sensationalist headline read, "Morgan Heir spies on his working-class girlfriend. What is the couple of the year hiding?" The silence that fell over the room was deafening. Nathan felt the world stop around him. Not only had he betrayed Chloe's trust, but now his moment of weakness had become a public spectacle. "Nathan, what does this mean?" Frank asked, his voice mixing disbelief and disappointment. Before Nathan could respond, Richard intervened. "This is a disaster. First the leak, and now this. The company's image is in tatters." Evelyn, however, seemed more concerned about another aspect. "Nathan, sweetheart, why were you following that girl? Has she done something? I always said she couldn't be trusted." "Enough!" Nathan shouted, surprising everyone. "Chloe hasn't done anything wrong. The only one who made a mistake was me. I let doubts and rumors affect me. And now—" His voice broke, the magnitude of his actions falling on him like a slab. Frank looked at his son with a mixture of compassion and concern. "Son, I understand that your personal life is complicated, but right now we need to focus on saving the company. This scandal only worsens our situation." Nathan nodded, trying to regain his composure. "I know, Father, and I promise I'll do everything I can to fix this. But first I need to talk to Chloe. I need to explain—" "Explain?" Evelyn interrupted. "Nathan, darling, maybe this is the perfect time to end that relationship. Clearly it only brings problems and—" "No, Mother," Nathan said firmly. "Chloe is the best thing that's ever happened. To me, she's taught me more about life and true love than anyone else. And now, because of my stupidity, I could lose her. I'm not going to give up on her." With those words, Nathan headed for the door. But before leaving, he turned to his father. "I promise I'll be back to help with the company crisis. But first, I need to make things right with Chloe." As Nathan left the office, his mind was a whirlwind of emotions and thoughts. How would he explain to Chloe what he had done? Could she forgive him? And more importantly, how could he prove to her that he trusted her completely? What Nathan didn't know was that while he was dealing with his personal problems, the shadows at Morgan Corp were growing deeper. Someone was pulling the strings, behind the scenes, and the information leak was just the beginning of a much more sinister plan. In her apartment, Chloe was watching the same viral video, tears running down her cheeks. The doorbell rang, and when she opened the door, she found herself face to face with Nathan. "Chloe, please, let me explain," Nathan pleaded. Chloe looked at him, her face a mixture of pain and disappointment. "Explain what, Nathan? How you didn't trust me? How you preferred to follow me like a criminal instead of simply asking me?" Nathan stepped forward, desperate to make her understand. "I know I messed everything up. I let rumors and my own insecurities control me. But I love you, Chloe, more than anything in this world. Please give me a chance to prove it to you." Chloe hesitated, the internal struggle visible in her eyes. "Nathan, I love you too, but love without trust, what kind of relationship is that?" As the couple faced their most critical moment, in the offices of Morgan Corp, a shadowy figure smiled satisfactorily in front of a monitor. The plan was working perfectly. Soon, the Morgan empire would fall, and with it, all those who stood in its way. The storm looming over, Nathan, Chloe, and the Morgan family was far from over. The real tests were just beginning, and only those with true love and unwavering loyalty could survive what was to come. Chloe's apartment was engulfed in tense silence. Nathan, his heart on his sleeve, waited for Chloe's response. Each second felt like an eternity. Finally, Chloe spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "Nathan, I love you, but this hurts. I don't know if I can simply forget it." Nathan stepped forward, his eyes pleading. "I'm not asking you to forget it, Chloe. I'm asking you to give me the chance to make it right, to prove to you that I can be the man you deserve." Chloe looked at him, the internal struggle evident in her eyes. "How? How can you prove to me that you trust me after this?" Nathan took a deep breath. "It was now or never. Come with me. Right now. Let's go see your father." Chloe's eyes widened. "What?" "I want to meet him, Chloe. I want you to introduce me as your boyfriend. I want him to know that I'm here for you and for him. No more secrets, no more distrust. You and your family are part of my life now, and I want everyone to know it." Tears began to run down Chloe's cheeks. "Nate, are you sure?" "My father, Nathan gently interrupted her. "He's part of you, Chloe, and I love you completely, with your past, your present, and your future. Please, let me prove it to you." Chloe, moved by the sincerity in Nathan's eyes, nodded slowly. "Okay, let's go." As they headed to the modest neighborhood where Chloe's father lived, Nathan received a call from the office. He ignored it. At this moment, nothing was more important than fixing things with Chloe. Upon arriving at the small house, Chloe nervously rang the doorbell. The door opened, revealing a tired-looking man, but with the same warm eyes as Chloe. "Chloe, what are you doing here so late? And who is he?" the man asked, looking at Nathan. Curiously, Chloe took Nathan's hand, intertwining their fingers. "Dad, this is Nathan, my boyfriend." The man's eyes widened in surprise, recognizing the name Nathan, the Nathan Morgan. Nathan stepped forward, extending his free hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you, sir." "I've heard a lot about you." Chloe's father shook his hand, still surprised. I didn't expect. Come in, please." Once inside, Nathan observed the modest but cozy living room. Photos of young Chloe adorned the walls, along with diplomas and recognitions. It was a home full of love and pride. "Sir," Nathan began, "I know this is unexpected, but I wanted you to know that I love your daughter and that I'm here to support both of you in whatever you need." Chloe's father looked at him intently, as if evaluating him. "Do you know about my condition?" Nathan nodded. "Yes, sir. And I want you to know that I'll do everything in my power to make sure you receive the best treatment possible." Chloe squeezed Nathan's hand, grateful. Her father, for his part, seemed moved. "Nathan," the man said, his voice breaking slightly, "my Chloe is the most precious thing I have. Promise me you'll take care of her." "With my life," Nathan responded without hesitation. The rest of the night passed with sincere conversations and occasional laughter. Nathan listened to stories from Chloe's childhood, shared anecdotes from his own life, and for the first time in a long time, he truly felt at home. When they finally said goodbye, Chloe's father hugged Nathan tightly. "Thank you," he whispered, "for loving my daughter for who she is." Back in the car, Chloe looked at Nathan with eyes full of love. "Nate, I thank you. This means a lot to me." Nathan kissed her softly. "I love you, Chloe, and I promise that from now on, I'll trust you completely. No doubts, no secrets." As they drove back, Nathan turned on the radio. A news item caught his attention. Breaking news: Morgan Corp in the midst of a financial scandal. Anonymous sources reveal possible illegal practices. Nathan felt his stomach churn. The crisis in the company was far from over, and now that he had fixed things with Chloe, he knew he would have to face the chaos that awaited him at Morgan Corp. What Nathan didn't know was that at that very moment, in the shadows of Morgan Corp's main office, a dark figure smiled, satisfactorily in front of a monitor. "Perfect," the voice murmured. "Everything is going according to plan. Soon the Morgan Empire will fall and I'll be there to pick up the pieces." The figure turned in his chair, revealing the face of Richard Vance, Frank Morgan's supposed trusted partner. His eyes gleamed with a mixture of ambition and vengeance. "Enjoy your moment of happiness, Nathan," Richard whispered to the screen showing a photo of the young heir, because soon you'll lose everything you love. As Nathan and Chloe headed towards a future they believed to be brighter, storm clouds gathered on the horizon. The real test for their love and loyalty was just beginning, and only those with a truly pure heart could survive what was to come. The next morning dawned grey and stormy, as if the weather reflected the turbulence that was approaching in Nathan and Chloe's lives. As they had breakfast together in Nathan's apartment, the television murmured in the background, a constant reminder of the crisis facing Morgan Corp. New revelations suggest that the leak of confidential information could have been an inside job. Morgan Corp stocks continue in free fall as investors... Nathan turned off the television with a frustrated sigh. Chloe looked at him with concern, taking his hand across the table. "What are you going to do, Nate?" she asked softly. Nathan intertwined his fingers with hers, grateful for her support. "I have to go back to the office. I need to face this head-on and find out who's behind it all." Chloe nodded, her eyes full of determination. "I'll go with you." "Chloe, you don't have..." "So we're a team, remember?" she interrupted with a smile. "Besides, maybe I can see something you guys can't. Sometimes an outside perspective is what's needed." Nathan felt a wave of love and gratitude. "What did I do to deserve you?" Let me think," Chloe joked. "Maybe follow me, disguised as a taxi driver." They both laughed, the tension of the moment momentarily dissipating. Nathan marveled at how Chloe could brighten even the darkest moments. Upon arriving at the Morgan Corp offices, the atmosphere was gloomy. Employees whispered in the corridors, casting nervous glances at Nathan and Chloe as they passed. In the boardroom, Frank Morgan paced back and forth, his face a mask of concern. "Nathan, thank God you're here," he said upon seeing them enter. Then, noticing Chloe, he added in a softer tone, "Chloe, it's good to see you." Chloe nodded respectfully. "Mr. Morgan, I'm here to help in any way I can." Frank looked at her for a moment, as if seeing her in a new light. "Thank you. We appreciate any help at this moment." Richard Vance entered the room, his face a perfectly rehearsed mask of concern. "Frank, the lawyers are here. They want to speak with you and Nathan in private." Frank nodded gravely. "Chloe, would you mind waiting outside for a moment?" Chloe looked at Nathan, who gave her a reassuring squeeze of the hand. "It's okay. I'll see you in a bit," she said, leaving the room. Once the door closed, the atmosphere in the room changed drastically. The lawyers, with their impeccable suits and somber expressions, began to detail the gravity of the situation. "Messrs. Morgan, the situation is critical," the lead lawyer began. "The accusations of financial fraud are serious, and the leak of confidential information has eroded investor confidence. If we don't act quickly, we could be looking at the end of Morgan Corp." Nathan felt the ground move beneath his feet. There must be something we can do. Some way to prove that these accusations are false. The lawyer exchanged an uncomfortable look with Frank. "The problem, Mr. Nathan, is that not all the accusations are false. We've found evidence of some irregularities in the accounting books." Frank paled. "What? That's impossible. I personally oversee all important transactions." Richard intervened, his voice laden with false concern. "Frank, do you remember those contracts you signed last month? The ones for the new acquisitions abroad?" Frank frowned, trying to remember. "Yes, but those were completely legitimate." "You reviewed them yourself, Richard." I know," said Richard, shaking his head. "But it seems someone altered the documents after we signed them. The figures don't match what we approved." Nathan looked at Richard suspiciously. Something in his tone didn't sound entirely sincere, and how is it possible that no one noticed this before? Richard shrugged. "The accounting department is investigating, but with all the chaos of the leak, it's possible this went unnoticed." The lawyers continued discussing legal strategies, but Nathan barely listened to them. His mind was working at full speed, trying to connect the dots. How was it possible that so many things went wrong at the same time? And why did he have the feeling that Richard knew more than he was saying? Meanwhile, outside the boardroom, Chloe waited patiently. She observed the comings and goings of employees, noticing the tension in the air. Suddenly, A conversation in a low voice caught her attention. "Did you hear? They say they found halted documents in the system," one secretary whispered to another. "Yes, and apparently Mr. Morgan's digital signature was on them." "Do you think he really?" Chloe frowned. "Altered documents? Digital signature?" Her mind, trained in reception and document handling at her old job, began to make connections. When Nathan finally came out of the meeting, she found him pale and worried. "Nate, what happened?" Chloe asked, taking his hand. Nathan looked at her, his eyes full of anguish. "It's worse than we thought, Chloe. There's evidence of fraud and everything points to my father or me." Chloe squeezed his hand. "Nate, I heard something while I was waiting, something about altered documents and digital signatures." Nathan's eyes lit up with a glimmer of hope. "What, Chloe, what exactly did you hear?" As Chloe told him what she had heard, Nathan felt a piece of the puzzle fall into place. "Chloe, you're brilliant. This could be the key to proving our innocence." With renewed energy, Nathan went back into the boardroom, this time with Chloe by his side. "Father Richard, I think we have a lead. We need to investigate the digital records of all documents signed in recent months." Richard paled slightly, but quickly recovered. "Nathan, I don't think this is the time to—" "It's exactly the time," Nathan interrupted firmly. "If someone has been altering documents, the digital records will show it." Frank looked at his son with a mixture of pride and hope. "Do it. Nathan, investigate everything necessary." As Nathan and Chloe prepared to dive into the investigation, Richard watched them with a mixture of rage and concern. His plan, so carefully orchestrated, was beginning to crumble. In the privacy of his office, Richard made a frantic call. "We have a problem. The boy and his girlfriend are close to discovering everything. We need to accelerate the plan." The voice on the other end of the line responded coldly, "Take care of them, Richard. We can't allow them to ruin everything we've worked for." As Nathan and Chloe delved deeper into the investigation, unknowingly, they were approaching an even greater danger. The truth was within their grasp, but the price for discovering it could be higher than they ever imagined. The storm looming over Morgan Corp was about to reach its most critical point, and only those with a brave heart and an unbreakable love could survive what was to come. The following days were a whirlwind of frantic activity. Nathan and Chloe, with the help of a small trusted team, immersed themselves in the arduous task of reviewing thousands of digital records. Fatigue was accumulating, but the determination to unravel the truth kept them going. One night, while everyone else had gone home, Nathan and Chloe remained in the office, surrounded by screens and documents. "Nate, look at this," Chloe suddenly said, her voice charged with excitement. "I found a pattern in the alterations. They all seem to occur at specific times, always after 11 p.m. Nathan approached, looking at the screen attentively. "It's true, and look, all the modifications are made from the same IP address." Their eyes met, a spark of hope igniting between them. They were close, they could feel it. "We need to trace that IP," Nathan said, his mind working at full speed. "But for that, we'll need help from the IT department." Chloe frowned. "Can we trust them? What if the person responsible has access to that department?" Nathan considered her words for a moment. "You're right. We can't risk it. We need someone external, someone we can trust completely." Suddenly, an idea lit up Chloe's face. "Nate, I think I know the perfect person. My friend Mike, the one who helped me when I had to hide the visits to my father. He's a computer genius and works independently." Nathan looked at her with a mixture of surprise and admiration. "Chloe, you're brilliant, but are you sure we can trust him?" Chloe nodded with conviction. "With my life. Mike is like a brother to me. We've known each other since we were kids, and I know he would never betray us." With a plan in mind, Nathan and Chloe prepared to take the next step in their investigation. What they didn't know was that their conversation had not gone unnoticed. In the darkness of the hallway, Richard Vance listened, his face contorted in a grimace of fury and concern. He took out his phone and dialed a number with trembling hands. "We have a problem," he whispered urgently. "The boy and his girlfriend are close to discovering everything. They're bringing in an external expert." The voice on the other end of the line responded coldly, "Take care of it, Richard. We can't allow them to get that far." "But how if something happens to them? Suspicions will fall on us," Richard replied, panic filtering into his voice. There was a moment of silence before the voice responded, "I have an idea. It's time to use the girl against him. Get ready to implement Plan B." As Richard hung up, a sinister smile drew on his face. The game was about to change, and he would make sure he was on the winning side. The next day, Nathan and Chloe met with Mike at a discreet cafe, far from the Morgan Corp offices. Mike, a young man with a disheveled appearance, but with sharp and intelligent eyes, listened attentively as they explained the situation. "This is big, guys," Mike said, whistling softly. "We're talking about serious corporate crime. Are you sure you want to get into this?" Nathan and Chloe exchanged a determined look. "We have no choice," Nathan replied. "It's the only way to save the company and clear my family's name." Mike nodded, his fingers already flying over his laptop keyboard. "All right, let's get to work then. But I warn you, whoever is behind, this is good, very good." As Mike worked, Nathan received a call from his father. "Nathan, I need you to come to the office immediately. Something delicate has come up." Frank's voice sounded tense, worried. Nathan felt a chill run down his spine. "What's going on, father?" "It's better if you see it for yourself and come alone, please." Nathan looked at Chloe, concern evident in his eyes. "I have to go to the office. My father says it's urgent." Chloe squeezed his hand. "Go, Mike, and I will continue here. Be careful, Nate." With a last kiss, Nathan headed towards Morgan Corp, not knowing he was about to face the most difficult test of his life. At the office, Frank was waiting for him with a grim face. By his side, Richard maintained an expression of false concern. "Nathan, son," Frank began, his voice laden with regret, "new evidence has appeared, and it's not good." Richard intervened, his voice soft but laden with insinuation. "It seems someone has been transferring large sums of money to an account abroad, an account linked to Chloe Sanders." Nathan felt the world stop. "What? That's impossible. Chloe would never—" "I'm sorry, son," Frank said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "But the evidence is clear. It seems Chloe has been involved in the fraud from the beginning." As Nathan struggled to process this information, his mind was a whirlwind of emotions and doubts. Could it be true? Chloe, his Chloe, had she betrayed him? What Nathan didn't know was that at that very moment, Chloe and Mike were about to discover the truth that could change everything. The race against time had begun, and the fate of Morgan Corp and of the love between Nathan and Chloe hung by a thread. Nathan stood motionless, his mind refusing to accept what he had just heard. Chloe, his Chloe, involved in fraud. It was inconceivable. Yet the evidence before him seemed irrefutable. Account statements, transfers, all pointing to a foreign account in the name of Chloe Sanders. "This has to be a mistake," Nathan muttered, running a hand through his hair. "Chloe wouldn't do something like this. There must be an explanation." Richard approached, placing a hand on his shoulder with feigned compassion. "Nathan, So now it's difficult to accept, but sometimes people aren't who we think they are. Perhaps Chloe saw an opportunity and—" "No," Nathan interrupted, roughly shrugging off Richard's hand. "I know her. I trust her. This doesn't make sense." Frank exchanged a worried look with Richard before turning to his son. "Nathan, I understand you want to believe the best of Chloe, but we can't ignore the evidence. The police are already on their way to question her." His father's words fell on Nathan like a bucket of cold water. "The police? But they can't. We need more time to investigate, to understand what's really going on." "I'm sorry, son," Frank said regretfully, "but it's out of our hands now. The board of directors has made the decision to fully cooperate with the authorities." Nathan felt panic taking over him. He had to warn Chloe, he had to protect her. Without saying another word, he ran out of the office, ignoring his father's and Richard's calls. Meanwhile, at the cafe, Chloe and Mike were about to make a crucial discovery. "I've got it," Mike exclaimed, his eyes shining with excitement. "I've managed to trace the IP, All the modifications to the documents were made from an address that belongs to Morgan Corp. Chloe leaned over the screen, her heart pounding hard. What? Are you sure? Mike nodded, his fingers flying over the keyboard. Completely. And there's more. The user account that made these modifications belongs to someone with high-level access. Someone like Richard Vance, Chloe completed, the pieces falling into place in her mind. I always knew there was something suspicious about him. At that moment, Chloe's phone rang. It was Nathan. Chloe, where are you? I need to see you right now. It's urgent. Nathan's voice sounded tense, almost desperate. Chloe felt a chill run down her spine. We're at the cafe, Nate. What's going on? I can't explain it over the phone. Stay there. I'm on my way. And Chloe, be careful. The call cut off, leaving Chloe with a sense of unease. She turned to Mike. We have to go. Something's wrong. They quickly gathered their things and left the cafe. They had barely taken a few steps when Chloe noticed a black car parked across the street. Two men in suits got out, their eyes fixed on her. Mike, Chloe whispered, I think we have trouble. Before they could react, the men approached. Chloe Sanders, one of them asked, showing a badge. I'm Detective Johnson. We need you to come with us to answer some questions. Chloe felt the world fade around her. What is this about? You're under investigation for financial fraud and corporate fund theft, the detective replied, his voice cold and impersonal. Mike stepped forward, protective. She's not going anywhere without a lawyer. Detective Johnson frowned. Sir, I suggest you don't interfere with a police investigation. At that moment, Nathan appeared running down the street, out of breath, and with a pale face. Chloe, he shouted, interposing himself between her and the detectives. They can't take you. This is a mistake. Mr. Morgan, said Detective Johnson, recognizing him, I understand your concern, but we have orders to take Miss Sanders in for questioning. Nathan looked at Chloe, his eyes full of determination. She's not going anywhere without me. I'm Nathan Morgan, heir to Morgan Corp, and I take full responsibility for Chloe Sanders. The detectives exchanged glances, clearly not prepared for this situation. Finally, Detective Johnson nodded. Very well, Mr. Morgan, but you'll both have to accompany us to the station. As they were led to the police car, Chloe looked at Nathan, her eyes full of fear and confusion. Nate, what's going on? Nathan took her hand, squeezing it tightly. I'll explain everything, I promise. But I need you to trust me, Chloe. No matter what happens, we're in this together. Mike, who had been left behind, shouted, Chloe, Nathan, don't worry, I'll get help. We'll solve this. As the car drove away, Nathan knew they were entering the eye of the storm. The accusations against Chloe, the evidence they had discovered against Richard, everything was about to collide. But amid the chaos, one thing was clear. His love for Chloe was stronger than ever, and he would fight with everything he had to protect her and uncover the truth. In the Morgan Corp office, Richard Vance watched from the window, a satisfied smile on his face. His plan was working perfectly. With Chloe out of the way and Nathan distracted, nothing could stop him, or so he thought. What Richard didn't know was that Mike, Chloe's friend, had in his possession the evidence that could unmask him. And as the sun set over the city, a race against time began. The truth was about to come to light, and no one was prepared for the consequences it would bring. The police station buzzed with activity as Nathan and Chloe were led through its doors. Detective Johnson guided them to an interrogation room, where he asked them to wait. Nate, Chloe whispered once they were alone. What's going on? Why do they think I'm involved in fraud? Nathan took her hands in his eyes filled with determination and love. Chloe, someone has been transferring money from the company to an account in your name, but I know you didn't do it. Someone is trying to frame you, Chloe gasped, shock evident on her face. But who would do such a thing and why? Before Nathan could answer, the door opened and Detective Johnson entered, accompanied by another officer. Miss Sanders, we have some questions for you, Johnson began, placing a folder on the table. Can you explain these transfers to your overseas account? Chloe looked at the documents, her face paling. I don't have any. overseas account. There must be a mistake." The detective looked at her skeptically. "The records clearly show your name and identification number, unless someone has stolen your identity." "That's exactly what happened," Nathan interrupted, slamming his palm on the table. "Chloe is innocent. We have evidence that someone within Morgan Corp has been manipulating documents and records." Johnson raised an eyebrow. "Evidence? I'd like to see it." "Mr. Morgan." At that moment, as if on cue, the door burst open. Mike entered, followed closely by Frank Morgan and, surprisingly, Sophia Anderson. "Stop everything," Mike exclaimed, holding up a USB drive. "I have the evidence you need." Frank stepped forward, his face a mixture of shock and determination. "Detective Johnson, I believe we've made a grave mistake. You need to see this." As Mike connected the USB drive to a computer, everyone gathered around the screen. What they saw left them all breathless. Detailed records of unauthorized access to Morgan Corp's system, all linked to Richard Vance's account. Encrypted emails between Richard and a group of foreign investors discussing plans to take control of the company. And most damning of all, security footage showing Richard accessing the system outside office hours, precisely at the times when the fraudulent transfers were made. "This is incredible," Detective Johnson muttered, going through the files. "Miss Sanders, it seems we owe you an apology." Chloe, still stunned by the events, could only nod. Nathan hugged her tightly, relief evident on his face. Frank turned to his son and Chloe, shame clear in his eyes. "I'm so sorry. I should have trusted you from the beginning." Sophia stepped forward, her face a mixture of regret and determination. "I need to apologize too. I was the one who overheard Nathan and Chloe's conversation at the office and told Richard about it. I had no idea what was really going on." Nathan looked at her surprised. "You? But why?" Sophia lowered her gaze. "I was jealous. I thought if I could create problems between you two, I'm sorry, it was childish and stupid." Chloe, showing a compassion that surprised everyone, took Sophia's hand. "The important thing is that you did the right thing in the end." Detective Johnson, who had been making calls, turned to the group. "We've sent a team to arrest Richard Vance, but I'm afraid he's already fled the office." Frank paled. "My God, what have we done? We trusted him for years." Nathan put a hand on his father's shoulder. "It's not your fault, Dad. Richard fooled us all." As the chaos of the revelations unfolded around them, Nathan and Chloe shared a look. In the midst of the storm, their love had remained strong, unbreakable. They had faced adversity together and had come out victorious. But the story was far from over. Richard Vance was still at large, and the damage to Morgan Corp was extensive. The real test was just beginning, rebuilding the company, restoring trust, and most importantly, healing the wounds this crisis had left on all of them as they left the police station towards an uncertain but hopeful future. Nathan and Chloe knew one thing for certain. Together they could overcome any obstacle. What they didn't know was that Richard, in his desperation to escape, was about to make a decision that would endanger not only the future of Morgan Corp, but the lives of everyone involved. The final battle was about to begin, and no one was prepared for what was to come. Dawn found Nathan and Chloe in the boardroom of Morgan Corp, surrounded by lawyers, executives, and police officers. The last 24 hours had been a whirlwind of statements, emergency meetings, and contingency plans. Frank Morgan, with deep dark circles and a face marked by worry, addressed the group. "Thank you all for being here. As you know, Richard Vance is still at large, but we're doing everything possible to locate him. Meanwhile, we must focus on saving the company." Nathan nodded, squeezing Chloe's hand under the table. "Father, I think I have an idea. If we can publicly demonstrate that we were victims of internal fraud and that we're taking steps to rectify the situation, we could regain investors' confidence." Chloe intervened, her voice soft but firm. "Also, we could use my experience in public relations to launch a transparency campaign, show the public how we're implementing new controls and security systems." The executives murmured their approval, impressed by the couple's initiative. Frank looked at his son and Chloe with a mixture of pride and gratitude. "Excellent ideas. Let's get to work immediately." As the team dispersed to begin implementing the plan, Nathan's phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello?" he answered cautiously. "Ah, Nathan." Richard's voice sounded cold and calculating on the other end of the line. "I see you've been busy unmasking me." "Impressive." Nathan made a frantic signal to the others to trace the call. "Richard, turn yourself in. It's best for everyone." A dry laugh resonated on the phone. "Oh, my dear boy, this is far from over. You see, I have an ace up my sleeve, something that could completely destroy Morgan Corp and your precious family." Nathan's heart raced. "What are you talking about?" "Let's say your father isn't as innocent as you think," Richard replied maliciously. "I have evidence of some shady deals he made years ago, deals that could send him to jail." Nathan looked at his father, who was watching him with concern. "You're lying," he said, but doubt filtered into his voice. "Are you sure?" Richard mocked. "Why don't you ask him about Project Phoenix? I'm sure it will be an interesting conversation." The call cut off, leaving Nathan stunned. He turned to Frank, who had visibly paled. "Father, what is Project Phoenix?" Frank closed his eyes as if the weight of the world had fallen on his shoulders. "Nathan, my son, there are things from my past that I'm not proud of. Things I did to save the company in desperate times." Chloe, sensing the tension in the room, intervened. "Mr. Morgan, whatever it is, we can face it together, but we need to know the truth." Frank nodded slowly. "You're right, it's time I confess everything." As Frank began to reveal the dark secrets of Morgan Corp's past, Nathan felt the world he knew crumbling. But looking at Chloe, he saw in her eyes the strength and love he needed to face whatever might come. What none of them knew was that Richard, in his desperation, was about to take drastic measures that would endanger not only the company, but the lives of everyone involved. Frank Morgan, his voice, breaking with emotion, began to reveal the truth about Project Phoenix. 15 years ago, the company was on the brink of bankruptcy. We had enormous debts, and the banks were turning their backs on us. Project Phoenix was a series of not entirely legal financial transactions to keep the company afloat. Nathan listened, stunned, as his father detailed a complex web of offshore accounts, bribes to officials, and market manipulation. Chloe squeezed his hand, offering silent support. "I did it to save thousands of jobs to secure your future, Nathan," Frank concluded, with tears in his eyes. "But that doesn't justify it. I'm prepared to face the consequences of my actions." A heavy silence fell over the room. Nathan, struggling with a mix of emotions, finally spoke. "Father, what you did was wrong, but I understand why you did it. Now we must focus on fixing this, on making things right." Chloe nodded, her mind working quickly. "Mr. Morgan, if we get ahead of Richard and reveal everything ourselves, showing remorse and a plan to rectify past mistakes, we could minimize the damage." As they discussed strategies, Nathan's phone rang again. It was Mike. "Nate, you have to see the news now." They quickly turned on the boardroom television. On the screen, Richard Vance appeared in a live broadcast from an unknown location. "Citizens," Richard began, his face a mask of false concern, "I am compelled to reveal the truth about Morgan Corp. This company, which presents itself as a pillar of the community, is built on lies and corruption." As Richard detailed the accusations against Frank and the company, mixing truths with exaggerated lies, panic seized the room. "We have to stop him," Nathan exclaimed. "If this continues, everything will be lost." Suddenly, Chloe noticed something in the broadcast. "Wait, look at the background, that view. I know where he is." Everyone turned to her. Surprised, Chloe quickly explained, "That's the view from the penthouse of the Skyline building. I recognize it because I once did an event there." Without losing a second, Nathan stood up. "I'm going there. I have to confront him. Stop this once and for all." "You're not going alone," said Chloe, standing up too. "We're in this together, remember?" Frank tried to protest, but the determination in the couple's eyes was unshakable. As they hurriedly left, Frank called the police, informing them of Richard's location. The trip to the Skyline building was a race against time, Nathan, and Chloe arrived just as the police began to surround the place. Ignoring the officers' warnings, the couple made their way to the penthouse. As they burst into the luxurious apartment, They found Richard in front of a camera, still broadcasting live. Upon seeing them, a cruel smile drew on his face. "Ah, the lovebirds have arrived," he said, turning to the camera. "Just in time for the grand finale." Nathan stepped forward, hands up in a conciliatory gesture. "It's over, Richard. The police are here. There's no way out." Richard laughed, a cold, humorless sound. "Oh, Nathan, always so naive. Did you think I didn't have an escape plan?" With a quick movement, Richard pulled out a gun, aiming alternately at Nathan and Chloe. "Now, we're going to have a little chat in front of our audience. I want you to confess. Nathan, confess how you and your father have been deceiving everyone for years." Chloe, seeing the danger in Richard's eyes, intervened. "Richard, think about what you're doing. This will only make things worse. For you—" "Silence!" Richard shouted, his composure crumbling. "You ruined everything, years of planning destroyed by a simple receptionist and a rich kid playing hero." As Richard ranted, Nathan noticed that the door behind them was silently opening. A SWAT team was preparing to enter. They just needed a few more seconds. "You're right, Richard," Nathan said, buying time. "We've made mistakes, but so have you. Why don't we lower the gun and talk about this like civilized people?" For a moment it seemed Richard was going to yield, but then, with a cry of rage, he raised the gun towards Nathan. "It's over!" Everything happened in an instant. Chloe lunged in front of Nathan just as the SWAT team burst into the room. A shot rang out in the air. When the chaos subsided, Richard was on the ground, disarmed and handcuffed. Nathan, his heart beating frantically, searched for Chloe. He found her standing unharmed, shaking but firm. The shot had missed, impacting the wall behind them. Nathan wrapped her in his arms, tears freely running down his face. "Chloe, my love, I almost lost you." Chloe hugged him tightly. "We're in this together, remember?" To the end. As the police took Richard away, Nathan and Chloe left the building, exhausted but relieved. Outside, a crowd of journalists and onlookers had gathered. Frank Morgan was there, waiting for them anxiously. "Son, Chloe, thank God you're all right," he said, hugging them both. Then, turning to the journalists, he added, "It's time for Morgan Corp to face its past and build a better future. We're ready to take responsibility for our mistakes and work to regain everyone's trust." Nathan, with Chloe by his side, stepped forward. "My father is right from today. Morgan Corp commits to total transparency and to repairing the damage caused. And we'll do it together as a family and as a community." As cameras flashed and reporters fired questions, Nathan and Chloe shared a look. They had faced adversity, uncovered the truth, and emerged victorious. Their love, tested in the fire of crisis, had emerged stronger than ever. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be trials, restructurings, and much work to do. But as long as they had each other, Nathan and Chloe knew they could face any challenge. And so, under the setting sun with the promise of a new beginning shining on the horizon, Nathan knelt before Chloe, taking a small box from his pocket. "Chloe Sanders," he said, his voice full of emotion, "would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Chloe, with tears of happiness in her eyes, nodded. "Yes, Nathan, 1,000 times yes." As they kissed, sealing their engagement in front of the world, they both knew this was just the beginning of their true adventure together.